The newest addition to the prehistoric park were a pair of Polycanthus. These tiny dinosaurs would not necessarily pull all the attention to them, especially with the recently added major attraction of Godzilla, but nevertheless, they were welcomed with open arms. Similar dinosaurs to the Trike family or the Stegosaurus family had already been introduced, but it was a first that a variety of the Ankylosaurus was also added. In some ways, an Ankylosaurus could be seen as the hedgehog of the dinosaur species, since its spikes and hard shell protected him from predators, and though these types could not curl up into a ball, they could make themselves small and round in order to avoid exposing their soft underbelly. Now, since the Polycanthus did not have any defensive mechanism with its tail, this particular dinosaur could be even more considered as a hedgehog type that rather than fight, would run or curl up at the first sign of danger. Now, the spikes were not as aggressively set out with the Polycanthus, especially on its midsection of the shell, but it had some pretty impressive side spikes, and since it was smaller and less covered with plate armor, it had a lot better chance of outrunning an incoming predator than an Ankylosaurus did. The pair of Polycanthus were true beauties. They differed quite in terms of color scheme, with one, the female, having a more yellowish hue, giving her a very gentle and docile look. They were transported over to a very small pen, but these dinosaurs did not need that much living space, since they preferred to stick around a small self-proclaimed territorial home. Now, what they did share with the Ankylosaurus was the cranky attitude, as they got annoyed very easily if grazing in a herd of other dinosaurs that was too much bustling with life. If they were indeed part of a larger herd, these Polycanthus could often be found more at the outskirts of the herd, where it was a bit more quiet. Because of that crankiness, it definitely took some time for them to get over the whole stressful moving process and being sedated. But luckily, it did not last for a very long time, and before you know it, the visitors could enjoy the newest attraction like all the others. At the same time, while the next dinosaur was being prepared to be brought over, scientists gathered around the table to talk about the massive Diplodocus zone that had still so much space that more dinosaurs could be added easily. But they were not sure yet which dinosaur would be a good fit. A smaller carnivore type could even be added, since the Diplodocus were so massive that they were not in any danger whatsoever. But maybe having some other herd grazers could add a bit of bustling life, and though many dinosaurs had already been added to the park, there were still a lot of options lying open on the table. But that choice would be made in due time. For now, it was time to finally add another carnivore with a Majungasaurus. Since so many dinosaurs had already been added, it got a little complicated with the scientists on which dinosaurs were already added and which ones were still absent in the park. Space was running out of the island, so some definite choices needed to be made on which dinosaurs would make the cut. By now, this park had way more species than any earlier parks like the zoo or the safari park, and the Majungasaurus would make a great new entry. The Majungasaurus actually had seen the light of day for the first time in this zoo, as it was not added previously in the safari park. This magnificent creature made quite the impression with its spike on its neck and shoulders, and its unique proportions like its massive head with jaws that could easily dent a car. Once again, a pair were added, and the color patterns between these two were like night and day, with one being very dark and the other having a lot of light tones. They were a very cute and beautiful couple, and the people were excited to see a new carnivore in the park, which was a more traditional bred dinosaur. The movement of the two went smooth, and a new habitat was very much to their liking. They roamed around a bit, drank some water, ate some meat, and checked out the perimeter around them. They did not feel threatened or caged in at all. And since there was still some open space next to them, it was decided to build some facilities right outside. Now they were very aware of all the commotion and the tasty snacks walking and working right outside their zone. But the meat provided by the rangers was always enough to where they were not salivating about the idea of crunching up those tasty humans. And so it was time for the next dinosaur to be brought over to the park, and this time it was another very special occasion. The next dinosaur would be the Excavaraptor. Now the unique thing about this dinosaur was that despite it being a fictional creation, it was not entirely based on something out of thin air. Back in the day, a script for Jurassic Park 4 was floating around, and in this script a mention was made of the Excavaraptor. The unique thing about the Excavaraptor was that they were nocturnal creatures, meaning they were active at night. Though they have some similarities in looks with the velociraptors, their manner of hunting was very different. The first thing that comes to mind when seeing these animals are their giant claws, that look more like they are for gorging or digging. And that last thing is exactly what they did, at least according to the script. They would dig tunnels and burrows where they would sleep during the day, and during the night they would grab anything that came close to their burrow and drag it inside to kill and eat it. It was quite frightening and comparable to burrowing spiders. In the actual script, a scene was described where the main character was hunted by soldiers and the Excavaraptors would ambush the soldiers and kill them one by one, kind of resembling the tall grass scene from Lost World, which undoubtedly is the best scene in that movie. And so despite these Excavaraptors being brought to life according to what it stated in the script, some alterations were still made. For one, these versions were not nocturnal, and could very well be active all day around. Their color scheme was the only thing that survived that nocturnal notion, as color variation was pretty much absent. They would also not burrow underground, but would adhere to a more pack-style hierarchy comparable to that of the Velociraptor. One of the reasons why this probably was the case is because the genetic code from the actual Velociraptors in the park were used to bring these creatures to existence. At first, only 3 Excavaraptors were brought in and brought over to the pen, but their size was a bit smaller than first anticipated. Therefore, green light was given to add another half dozen to make sure that the area was bustling with life and that the visitors always had a good view of these unique new creatures. And so the Excavaraptors were a big hit as well, and thus it was time to cool down again with a smaller new addition. And thus, the dorky but very cute Huayangasaurus was added to the park.